Hi guys. So I don't know how to do this YouTubey stuff, but well, obviously I've been booted out of my Insta, and I couldn't give a shit about stuff disappearing other than that it was a lot of content that directed people to a lot of good-hearted places for new information that might expand their ideas a little bit and help them get out their own way a little bit. In some of the areas that we stagnate in up here in terms of attitudinal shifts and just our attitudes on a wider expanse. I digress. I just want to put something out there to say I'm still alive. Certainly haven't really had a lot of what I would say amounts to reasonable response up here in Aberdeen to a woman in my predicament, with my circumstances, with the contributing factors. And I wouldn't care if, folks were really blind to that, ignorant to that. But there are some that are really not. And yeah, it's been a weird response. When I tell you it's been a strange response, it definitely doesn't match the kind of response that some more of the up-to-date attitudes tend to have towards women at this age in their life, and the things that they go through and experience, and how that presents and how that comes across, and how it shouldn't just be discarded because, well, health issues aren't a choice, are they? And we're still up in Aberdeen treating a lot of issues around particularly women's health at a particular time in their life, particularly different types of women that don't particularly fit the societal framework of what we say is good women. Maybe didn't want kids, doesn't, do very well in heteronormative patriarchal relationships, isn't very quiet when she's in pain, isn't very amenable when she's ignored, tends to resist quite loudly against attempts to overstep or assume or misinterpret. Eventually I start off very amenable, usually, and very easy to talk to, and for want of a better word that I hate, polite. I'm not a difficult person to talk to straight off the bat, but like anybody else, if you're ignored for extended periods of time when you really need some help, and you have directly, when it's quite difficult for people like me, when you've directly asked for some of that help, and well, I'm not going to go into too much details just now because I don't have all the parts just now, and as a lot of you know, especially folk I'm a bit more friendly with, well, I don't tend to say anything particularly detailed or that I'm sure about, or make any rash judgments without having enough details first. But when you do see me being a bit spicy and confrontational with people, it's oftentimes because it's not the first time there has been an attempt to overstep in terms of respect and reciprocity and mutual care and things like that. So yeah, when you see me going for the jugular, I'm going for the jugular of people that really are wrapped up in a well of their own cognitive dissonance, and really are very sure of their opinions and their stances with things, but don't actually follow through on those in all circumstances and in all scenarios and to all people. Because I can tell you, the one overriding feeling that I've been left with as a woman, that deals with all these complications up in Aberdeen, is that, well, there isn't really space for being any kind of different woman. There isn't space for any reasonable emotional reaction. There isn't any understanding for any frustrated, upset, angry reaction to all of that. There's a real, I think for me, I've always felt up here seems a little bit different in terms of attitudes and stuff. And, I'm not the only one that thinks that about up here. But I have really experienced firsthand in the last few months what that attitudinal difference does to people in your community, as in how it can very quickly move you from a place of somebody who's kind of vaguely accepted on the outskirts to somebody who is just, you can just fade into oblivion and not exist anymore. Because what? We don't like the cut of your jib. We don't like that you eventually got angry after being ignored for a prolonged period of time. We didn't understand what it was you were putting out there. We don't understand your humor. We don't understand your creative language, I guess, and the way that you come at things and the strategies you implement. But yeah, it was getting people listening in recent months. Not closer to home all that much, to be honest, but further afield, certainly, you know, because the attitudes I have aren't all that, you know, unusual or radical when you step a little further outside Aberdeen. When you look a little bit further at, you know, when you zoom out a bit and look at the overall picture a bit more, the attitudes I have are really not all that out there. It is just radical honesty for the most part, and care in a way that shows up because of our human-centric values, not our preferences in terms of which people we like or don't like so much. So, I have no idea how to upload a video to YouTube, but I think it's important that I put something out there in the interim, because we all know that I'll get back at some point to finding my way in, even on the dreaded Insta, because let's be honest, the tools and things that I've managed to utilise there and learned my craft in there recently, not recently, over the years, I have really honed a compelling digital language in there that incorporated all of my creative skills that helped me talk about the social themes and that wider web of what people are talking about that doesn't seem to land enough here in the general populace of Aberdeen. New ideas, fresh ideas, you know, ideas that expand your ideologies a little bit and create a bit of room for change where there currently isn't enough, you know, those kind of ideas. And just communication and talking to people openly without going, oh, I'm going to make a snap judgment about who that is straight off the bat based on nothing of any substance. And then, you know, I'm going to let that inform my decisions and my actions. I don't tend to do that. I tend to seek further information. I tend to communicate with people before I make those snap judgments. But that's just my style. That's just how I do it. So anyway, I don't know how to upload videos to YouTube. You can tell I'm still my usual car crashy self. And why wouldn't I be now that I've been cut off from my only actual real sense of community and emotional support, which was my wider community on Instagram that I had found my way to in recent months, you know? And I would really like to find my way back to them. But for some reason, every time I do, especially on Instagram, meta platforms, as soon as I find my way back to them, I am booted straight out. I'm guilty by association, essentially. When I opened up a second account the other day on Instagram, I couldn't have been in longer than, you know, basically the first handful of people I followed essentially shadow banned me straight off the bat. I couldn't comment on people's posts after I had followed those people. And the second we tried to interact in any way, and when I say interact, I mean we're just friends talking about day-to-day stuff and supporting each other through this shit show, you know, good folk with honest communication that actually give a fuck. Yeah, I lost that. So yeah, it's troubling that you are branded guilty by association by doing nothing but having good, honest conversations with other people on a social media platform, no less. You know, like, what's the big deal? Yeah, and I guess I wish other people more than myself and like my psych, and that seems to be it at the moment, and a couple of friends maybe on the outskirts. I wish more people would ask why that is. Why is that some of us are so badly? Because remember, when I lose that, I really do lose everything, because I'm not kidding when I say that my comms are interfered with relentlessly. They are. So anyway, I don't know how to upload YouTube videos, and this isn't a great long one, but it's a little bit of just for the folks that I connected with and really appreciated so much. I'm all right, I'm surviving. It's not been a great response up here, as some of you know already, on a private level, obviously. And I will find my way back in, but right now I'm kind of having to do the menial things like chase up making sure my phone and broadband connection aren't cut off, because, well, without decent with patchy comms, it's very hard to sort out basic amenities and support that you need to sort out and to finish that process. You know, you can phone up and begin to arrange it, but then it just kind of ends up looking like I'm really flighty and I don't want to do anything, and that's not true. Every time I try, my comms are interfered with. And I know there's a lot of you out there now that I have connected with in recent months that can relate to that. And we all know that there is no fair reason for that. There's no reasonable reason for that. So I guess we're just wondering if people in our communities and further afield in our web, like in between us, are going to start looking at why that is now with some of us. You know? Or at least question some of your presumptions and, you know, conclusions that you've jumped to without having all of the facts, without even having a conversation with me or knowing me on any level. Yeah, there's some real inhumane attitudes up here and behaviours that happen in context to what I think really probably boils down to something a lot simpler and not that sinister, which is probably just fucking social inadequacies. You know, it's the social insincerities that we tell ourselves to keep our place in society and our comfortable spots and our, you know, our communities with each other. But when they are detrimental to other people in our communities that don't quite fit those cliquey narratives, then yeah, we got some outdated attitudes up here that we need to be having a little look at and questioning whether we are still entirely, even as the good people in our communities that are trying to make things better for people, still actually letting the very people in our communities that fall into those categories and under that umbrella, letting them down for, I don't know, seemingly personal, tiny reasons. I don't know is the point. And whenever I don't know, I ask a lot of questions because it doesn't add up, doesn't make sense, doesn't reflect me, doesn't, it's just premature and silly, I think. I would hope it's just that. I hope it's something as little as human fallacy and not anything more sinister, like silencing women like me, you know? Anyway, I will try and upload this, and mateys, like actual my mateys, if you get this, I'm recalibrating and trying to figure out how because obviously I don't want to have to be going through this insane amount of workarounds and hoops I've had to jump through in order to stay in touch with you folks in recent months. So it has to be a bit easier than that for me. And obviously I always want to kind of feed into the YouTube, and I do have a lot of things that I could be putting there in a more long format, I guess. But I think just the sheer societal abandonment that I have felt lately and how desperate stakes that has left me in has knocked me a bit. And it's taken me a minute to recalibrate and decide how best to stay in touch with my community. But it's shocking that I should have to go through all these hoops because the communities that I have advocated so loudly and so effectively for in recent months too, I don't know, have some weird chip on their shoulder with me, don't understand me, won't have a conversation with me. Honestly, participate in a lot more playground politics than they should, given the kind of people I think they actually are. So, yeah, all of that. And if you see this and you're any of my mateys, please pass it on as usual. You guys know who you are. Please pass it on and, you know, let people know I'm still here in the ether somewhere. And I will I'd love to stay in more regular contact with you in more of an interpersonal way, but we know that it's very hard to reach out to me in any other way. So maybe here for now, and then we'll see. Anyway, give me a shout if you guys see this. Leave something in the comments if you're one of my folks, one of my black sheep. If any of my black sheep have made their way here and find this video, you know what to do, you know? Anyway, take care, guys, and we'll figure it out, man. So if we're going to let a little thing like this stop us, come on. Societal insincerities and the lies we tell ourselves have not been enough to stop us yet. It's not going to do it now, is it? All right, black sheep, get at them.